can go on. Yes.
So, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Network Our podcast. I am your host, Molly Crease, and today I have back again as my guest the lovely Tammy Wyllie. And we have a lot to talk about today. It's Women's History Month. We're going to be sharing a lot of our personal experiences. We're going to be talking about professional women versus professional men, the gender gap, all those things we're going to be tackling in this discussion today. I know half an hour is not enough for what we're going to have to say today, but I hope that you will enjoy this episode and that we will share some really great gems with you today. So let's get started. Tommy, before you get started, I was doing some research and I wanted to just do so, to just give you some stuff here before we get into that discussion. I was looking at, and we were on the same page with this. I was thinking about women businesses, the pandemic happened, what is going on, and all of that stuff. And I did a search for how many women businesses have opened up and are being successful and stuff like that. And what came up is, according to Zapier.com, an average of 1,821 new businesses start per day by women in 2022. 16% of startups had at least one female founder. And according to score.com, the annual report from the National Women's Business Council, women-owned businesses earned 1.8 trillion in revenues, but that's only 4.3% of the total private sector annual revenues, which is a very, very low percentage.
It is.
Then it says the 2022 Women and Minority Business Owner Spotlight Report from Bank of America also shows that women-owned businesses are ready to grow. 63% expect revenue to increase, 47% plan to expand their businesses, which is great. But then we come to the challenges for women business owners, and then it says 29% of them talk about not having access to capital and not having equal access to financing. And we go into regulation, sufficient family support, being taken seriously, owning your accomplishments, balancing business and family life, building a supportive network. And then it shows that 25% of women owned businesses are less likely to apply for loans versus men businesses, 33% of men do. So with all of that information, let's get into the discussion because I know we have a lot to talk about. So I'm gonna kick it over to you.
Yes. Um, it's quite an interesting article and some very alarming evidence that you brought up. And I think what contributed to a lot of businesses or women-owned businesses increasing during the pandemic, or the increase of that, had to do with the shift the pandemic brought across with people losing their jobs, and even a loss of, women who have lost jobs and was displaced during the pandemic. I think it, it, a lot of it too had to do with having to be home to support the family, and them having to sometimes now decide to leave if they weren't even put out, but still having to provide for our household. So I think all of those factors considered played a part in that decision. With regard to women finding funding, I'll be quite honest, and I'll say it. Sometimes we don't access the information or have that type of network sometimes as men do, to even branch out and ask for the appropriate help. You get what I'm saying? men will find it so much easier in some cases or most cases to navigate and find that help and latch on to a network to get that funding. And I think resources available, and there are resources available to women too. I know the New York Small Business, SBS, and all of that. They do have, and there are incentives for minority and women-owned businesses, but you don't hear much about it. It takes a lot of research and a lot of road mapping to find out what's available.
Mm-hmm. And two, is it really unequal footing with men, even though they have those resources though?
It is unequal. It creates an unequal footing. Let's consider this, not even entering the realm of being a business owner, but even in the workspace. Look at when women take maternity leave. Look at the gender pay gap. This was quite a big thing, and it's still apparent even today. Men do have more of a footing than women in the professional realm. There are several articles to support that. And it's sad. It's sad because we navigate and we handle a lot more. Even there's biases around securing employment or having to leave the work to take some maternity leave as well. And this is where they came up with this paternal leave and all of that. So yes, it's apparent.
Let's tackle these challenges one by one, because the first one that came to mind was equal access to financing, and you mentioned the small business organization. But although they are trying to create these avenues for women, there is still a large gap where everything is centered around the men, because I don't know whose song said that we're living in
a man's world.
In a man's world, right?
Excuse me.
It's a man's world, and so it seems like we've been fighting this fight for a long time to get some equal footing, and we're realizing now that we still have a ways to go when it comes to that equal access to financing. So how is it that we're supposed to open businesses and all of that stuff if there's no equal financing? Do you think that there is still a traditional structure where men are in charge and they need to be in charge? Because if you look at a long time ago, women didn't work. Your position was in the home. You couldn't open a bank account and all of that stuff. Do you even though we've come a mighty long way, do you think that traditional hub is still hovering over why that is happening?
I think we've made significant strides. However, it's information, it's access to information now that's our issue. I know of a couple agencies, and because I've worked with NYC Business Solutions for some years, I understand the umbrella of businesses that support or services that are available to women. So I would not say that some people still have the mentality, yes, but on an overall sense, we have made strides in making things available for women, right? Some company culture, the culture of some organizations have changed to adapt to facilitate the growth of women who, in spite of facing challenges, right? So really, it's accessing the information and networking, I believe.
So now I'm going to challenge you on that. We're talking generally in a general umbrella about women,
right?
But let's separate it there. And although there are all those avenues for women, how is it beneficial to Black women and house Black because when we separate it, we talk about all women, but now let's get into the deep dive of talking about Black women. How successful are we at getting those resources to develop our business?
So, as Black women, we fight a unique challenge, and it's twofold. First of all, it's being in the minority or being Black, and then we deal with the other sense of being female. So yes, we are challenged with something that's nuanced and something that is unique, and the fight to combat that must it takes particular effort on our part as Black women to break those barriers. I've seen plenty and a lot of Black women owned businesses that thrive and that are doing well, and Black female thought leaders. So again, I always say push against the boundary, develop a network, find your niche. I am not going to say that it's easy because it's hard. Even in the industry that I am in, of resume writing and being a career strategist, I have seen my female Caucasian peers who probably have less experience and less of a skill set push and thrive.
Skyrocket to the top.
Skyrocket to the top only because they know who to latch on to, and then they know the networks to navigate. However, as Black women, even if we know the networks to navigate and where to go, would those networks accept or even extend that same way or clear that same path as they would for a female Caucasian counterpart? So it's like everything else. It's identifying and navigating. And remember in our last conversation, we spoke about finding your tribe.
Yeah.
It's finding your tribe. And we can't stay. I'm never for one, I recognize, but I'm never for one to sit in a corner and lick my wounds. I might sit in a corner for one day, but then quickly recalibrate and find.
That's a great question that you asked. And a conversation just came to mind. I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine. She is a Black woman as well. And we were talking about mentorship and sponsorship, right? And she was saying throughout her career, she had a sponsor, and it was a white male sponsor. And she was saying that it's the white males who would invest. But then on the flip side, I was looking at it and I'm like, yes, you're a Black woman, but on the outside of your skin, the outside of your skin is it's not, it's a different shade. It's not really black. You are
She's passing.
Black.
She's like passing.
Yes, right. So, and we can't ignore that there is still some sort of colorism in the corporate world, in the corporate environment. And even though you are, there are different shades of Black, right? And so sometimes it's the shade you are that does not enable you to get noticed or to get looked at or to get those resources. That a different shade might be going through hell to get that same. So we have to look at that reality as well. And how do we as Black women overcome that and celebrate our sister for getting that sponsor, getting forward in her career, and not building that negative malice towards us not getting it because of the forces or the stereotypes or the colorism or whatever that might be happening over here in corporate America.
So how do we navigate that? That is the question. That is the challenge. It is a challenge, and I think it really goes back to finding your network, picking your battles, and just there are resources out there. And yes, it's apparent. I would say it's not a total block. The only thing is that we have to prove ourselves 10 times more than the fairer or the more passing counterparts, right? So it really zeroes. It would take. We have to build more strategy around about breaking these barriers, and I've seen it work, and it does work. Finding your niche and just growing. I mean, that is my that's my take
finding your tribe, right?
Yeah, finding your tribe and growing in
okay, so since we're saying finding your tribe, let's tell our listeners, how do you go about finding your tribe? Because you have to be very strategic in going about finding your tribe, and before finding your tribe, you have to understand what your goals are, where you want to get to, what you want to do, and then you seek those people out that would be helpful to you and be valuable to be in your network. So
Yes.
some assessment is important, some research is important before you actually start building that tribe. And then we have to remember that there are some people that you might approach that might not be receptive. And then there are also people that you might not approach, but people that would be looking at your progression, looking at your brand and what you're building, and would just instinctively gravitate to what you're doing and want to help you.
Yeah, yeah. I think, well, for me at least, with COVID, I started using the internet a lot more and navigating online social networking and like-minded professionals in my particular field. And I was happy to find a couple that I've managed to grow in. And while not everyone in the organization I've built alliances with, the couple of alliances that I've managed to build, we were able to develop an exchange to further each other's mission in that particular industry that I'm in, which is resume writing and career coaching. So what I use that example to say, do your research, as you said, find and latch on to online networks, communities. Facebook has flipped the script, and now there are a lot of professional groups on Facebook as well as on LinkedIn. And then you can even find professional groups per industry by just doing a Google search. I came across the Professional Association for Resume Writers by just doing a Google search. There might be a membership fee attached. Do your membership and become engaged in some of the meetings. Listen, attend, contribute. And I think it's from your contributions. And I'm speaking because this is how it happened for me, right? From your contributions, the people who are objective and like-minded, regardless of their shade or ethnicity, they will become allies and they will help further your mission. However, keep in mind that this is a two-way street.
Yes.
And as much as they pour into you, you must pour into them and keep the relationship symbiotic, right? So be prepared also to make deposits, because that's your investment, right? I like to call it your collateral, your social collateral, right? Yes. And that's the thing, social collateral.
Right, that dog, social collateral.
That as money. You're net, your social collateral, right?
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, the networks that you build it's like investments.
Definitely.
Because opportunity would come up by someone mentioning, you might go towards it, throw your hat in it, and boom, you land a pay increase, or you land. So really continue. Don't be daunted by the negative aspects of it, because yes, they are, and you will experience it. And that's exactly what they want you to be, daunted and stop. Push further, and you'd find your space.
Let's get into something else that we're not on equal footing with. Let's talk about having that support. And when we talk about support, I'm going to talk about here now the family support, not having sufficient family support. That was one of the things talked about in the article, when women with women and doing their own business and stuff like that.
This is interesting, because this came to mind only this week for me. And a lot of thought leaders and authors, business authors, their first advice to any entrepreneur is, your friends and your family are not your clients. Excuse me, your friends and your family are not your clients. Because sometimes while they might cheer you on and say yes, 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 some people are just not aligned with your vision. They're still family, but you can't be for it. So it in that situation, it takes setting clear boundaries. Setting clear boundaries for the time that you need to further your goals, your personal aspirations. And in that, and in setting those boundaries, you may ruffle a couple of feathers, but your very, very immediate family who's under your roof too, would understand that you're trying to further a mission for them. And just carry on. That's what I say.
Let's talk about the dynamic in terms of, if you're a family where you're married and you have kids. And also let's talk about the dynamic where you might be a single mother trying to build this business, and you have all these other things that come across your plate. Let's talk about that, because I know a lot of our women listeners are in this situation where you're not a single mother, but you might be in a marriage where you have to do so many different things on top of you trying to build that business. Or you might just happen to be in that lane where you're a single mother and you're still trying to build this business as well.
So I can fully relate to that. Trying to find time to further yourself professionally while trying to manage home and all of that. And for me, I can share from my experience, be realistic. This is my first step. You have to become realistic by the level of support given in your house to then take things on your plate. Sometimes you may have to make the sacrifice to not take on the additional until circumstances change. Children will grow up and grow up a bit more independent. So at that point, you would take on an additional thing and an additional thing and an additional thing. And that's how it happened for me. I have had a vision for a very long time to begin my resume writing business. But because my child was younger and was less independent, I wasn't able to. And for years, worked solely as a source of income, right? To get that. And as he grew, things changed. And I started, and now he still needs support and he still needs help. So I can't take on as much clients as I need to. So we really have to be realistic with ourselves and our time and plan accordingly. So that's my first course of advice. Another thing is identify your allies in your family, grandparents, sisters who can help support by watching and supporting.
Yeah, and I just wrote down build a village.
Yes, build, yeah. Right, it takes a village, but also not everyone is willing. So you really have to tap in and identify that support and utilize that support if if you have that. But I would always say plan and realistically plan and set a map before taking a course of action, because that as women, as mothers, as people navigating homes and other things in our lives, without a plan, you would feel overwhelmed. And in creating that plan, identify resources in creating that plan as well.
Yeah. I would want to say, add to that too, and say to the men, needs to be supportive as well. And if you're in a household where you're married, I would say to the woman that you need to sit down with your husband and discuss, like you said, a plan. This is where we want to go. This is how I want to help the family. What can we do to build as a unit so
Yes.
that all of the pressure is not on me to build my business, to tend to the house, to tend to the kids, all of these things? Because let's face it, men have it easier. They just have to get up and go to work. Most men are not family men in the household where they're doing household chores. They're the ones being the dominant parent of taking care of the kids and all of that. It has fallen on women because we are nurturers, we are the mothers, we are all of that. And I know there are some men that do it. But if we look at the stats for mostly men will go out and they will go out and work, while the women have to figure out how to go to the PTA meeting, how to bake the cookies, how to get the kids to school, all those different extracurricular activities and all of that stuff. So I think it would be important to sit down as a family unit and say,
Yes.
I really want to do this. And how can we build this into our family system so
Yeah.
that it's not a strain on myself only.
Right.
For single mothers, it's going to be a little bit different
Yeah.
because I can speak from experience. My sister is going through this right now, and like you said, a village is needed. You have to
Yes.
build a village, because I pitch in whenever I'm needed and whenever I have the time, so that she can go out there and pursue her dreams, pursue her career. And it's not easy, especially when you're in a situation where the father of your child might not be pulling that weight like he's supposed to. And even though you have a good, the child might has a good father or whatever, he has to go out and work as well. And then
Mm-hmm.
what happens is the onus is still on the woman to
Mm-hmm.
take care of that child and make sure that everything is going smoothly. So when you look at it, it's really, really difficult. Women
Mm-hmm.
have a really difficult time of navigating all of that. And like you said, a village is important, a tribe is important,
Mm-hmm.
because if you don't have all of that, then you're not going to be able to do what you want to do.
Yep, yep. So yep. And I identifying your allies daily, excuse me, in creating that plan.
Yeah, definitely. then we jump into being taken seriously, right? And, and it's not just being taken seriously as a leader, as a boss, as a business owner. And I've coached clients where they've told me that they have an offer, they have a package, and their price has been brought into question. People don't want to pay them what they're worth and all of that stuff. Versus if you're looking to do business with a male counterpart, with a male business, they don't get as much or the same reaction of people not wanting to pay their price, not wanting to hire their business or what have you. So that is all under the realm of being taken seriously. So how do we combat that as women and really showing up as the bosses that we are and really being commanding that respect that we need?
I really think we have to come as a force to be reckoned with in our meetings, in our presentations, and how we deliver. I think once we are able to create and build value around our services, backed with solid evidence of recommendations and results. And we sit in front of someone who's doubting us and saying us and wouldn't want to pay us our price. I think it becomes easy for us to maintain and continue to push to find that person who will give us our worth, because we have provided or we've set our value proposition.
Mm-hmm.
I was speaking to, and not to relegate what we spoke about earlier in terms of it not being apparent, but I have a very close friendship with a brown friend who was in the industry as myself, like brown, Latina, but she can be white passing, right? But we have built such a close friendship in that we, after speaking to a client or after pitching a client and stuff, she would text me and we'd talk and stuff. And then she would say, well, this one didn't want to pay, or how do we? So they themselves too sometimes encounter those challenges. So I don't want us to kind of zero in and think, and there are challenges out there, but we have to strengthen our core and strengthen our minds in terms of that we become so unwavered of the value that we bring, that once we are hit by that, it's not taken personally. As women in business, as women who would be pitching people and presenting information to people, and not only women, but as Black women in business, we have to solidify and build a very strong value proposition for ourselves. People will buy, some people won't. When I was talking to that friend about her circumstance, I presented this analogy. Most people, if not all people, need vehicles. They need cars, right? Wherever you go, even if you're living in New York City, you still need a vehicle to go here and there, right? With a subway station. But not every person needing a vehicle is a Tesla client. You get that? Not everyone needing a car is a Tesla client or is a client for Tesla. You have your Hondas, you have people. So I'm saying that not everyone will gravitate to your message, but become so secure in your value proposition that you're not unwavered when you get a no. And that is
I love that. That's a great analogy. I really love that. And don't be I would add this and say don't be distracted by being called aggressive either.
yes,
Because a lot of times they like to call, especially
attach
Black
aggression
women,
with us.
attach aggressive to you being um forceful. Well, forceful not the right word, but to you standing in your power
Unwavering, yeah.
and unwavering, and you saying, this is my worth, this is my value, and I'm sticking to it. And so sometimes that can be labeled as being aggressive, but it's not being aggressive. It's you standing in knowing who you are and what you bring to the table, and being
Yes.
able to articulate that in such a way that people see you as the leader and as the influencer that you are.
Mm-hmm. Or to see the immediate value that you're trying to deliver.
Yeah.
Right? And once you know that you've done that, and they're still not looking to snap or bite, understand that not everyone, is your client, or not everyone would be a partner. Sometimes it's just not for everyone.
Definitely. Definitely. And this goes right into our last point that I was gonna bring up, is owning your accomplishments. Because a lot of times we as women, we are so afraid to own what we've accomplished. We are so afraid to talk about it. We don't want people, because we are such natural nurturers, we are such natural helpers. Our first instinct is to help others. And I saw a quote the other day from The Rock, was giving quotes, and one of the quotes was, "You cannot pour into someone else's cup if your cup is not full." Right? And sometimes we as women think that if we're not giving, if we're not helping, that we're being selfish, that we in some way we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. And so that ties into us not wanting to talk about what we're doing. We're not wanting to talk about the successes that we're having, not wanting to celebrate ourselves. So what do you say about that? Owning your own accomplishment.
I think it comes down to having the rubber hits the road. Once that rubber hits the road and you see that your goals depend on how you articulate your value and your vision, I think the person struggling with that would eventually find ways to navigate and become accepting of doing it. That used to be me. It used to be me until I saw, hey, I'm not getting this because I'm not doing this. Okay, let me try to do this, right? So I think once the rubber hits the road and you're looking for tangible results, you're looking for results. I think and you see that, hey, I'm not tooting my own horn enough or on this professional realm, you would begin to grow comfortable with speaking about your accomplishments and what you can do. However, um, speaking to them as completions and not quite accomplishments. So when you speak to them by, oh, I've completed this and I've completed that, and not tout, because some people are just not natural braggers, right? But
Yeah.
you start looking at, you start shifting your thoughts around your achievements, and you see it as completions. I think it will become easier to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
I have completed this. I've done this. I've done that milestone. I've gone through that milestone. I think once the thoughts are shifted around it, but again, I mean, once the rubber hits the road and you see that, hey, this is needed, it will come. Navigating it will come.
and let me tell you, men are not afraid to do this.
No,
I've been in that professional world. I'm part of the National Black MBA. I've been in where I've met presidents, CEOs, community leaders, all of that stuff. You go to these networking events and to these conferences and all that stuff, and you see the men are not afraid to speak. They're not afraid to come to you and say, "This is what I do. This is who I am. I am the CEO of this. I am the president of this." They are not afraid to get big and bold up in front of your face and say, "This is what I've done. This is what I've accomplished." Something that they're not afraid to do as well, they're not afraid to ask for what they want.
no.
You would see them at an event and they would be like, "This is what I do. I'm looking to do this. I'm doing this new project. I'm going to reach out to you. I need your help here." They are not afraid. And
Yeah.
we as women need to get into that space too, where we're not afraid to ask for help and we're not afraid to talk about what we're doing as business owners, as professional
Mm-hmm.
women, and what we have accomplished in terms of being in that space. I
Mm-hmm.
think once we get more comfortable in doing that, that is going to open up the door of opportunities as well. We're going to be able to have people that are supposed to be in our tribe, in our network, in our
Mm-hmm.
village, gravitate to us because now they know what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also going to be able to decipher who we need to be a part of that village and a part of that network as well once we start putting ourselves out there even more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I really think we have to break from that mold that society has placed us in, and really recondition our thoughts and our minds around professional growth as women, and
Hmm.
and be honest in saying that we have to plan around the challenges that we will encounter, and not be hard on ourselves when we have to take things in smaller pieces or in smaller bites.
Hmm.
And that is something I had to grow to accept too. And in doing so, taking things in smaller bites, you might find yourself in the comparison trap, but don't fall for it. I mean, I'm speaking from experience. Um, really, really keep your mind on things that will keep you focused and keep you motivated, and align
Hmm.
yourself with people of like mind who will further.
Yeah. And you talk about society, and the last thing I would say as well is do not feel guilty or ask for forgiveness when pursuing your goals and
Yeah.
and pursuing what you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
because society have had us in a box for so long that we
Mm-hmm.
we we're not supposed to work. We're supposed to be the ones home tending to the family. We're the
Mm-hmm.
nurturers. We're the one that constantly give, 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 give. And so
Yes.
I think at times some women feel guilty because they are trying to pursue a different path or do both things at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And society can make us feel guilty like we're not operating in the role that they set out for us.
Yes. Yes.
And so
Yes.
that becomes part of the insecurity factor as well.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes part of us not wanting to say what we're doing or not wanting to talk
Mm-hmm.
about ourselves because of that fear of being judged and
Mm-hmm.
fear of what society or even the men are going to say,
To
because
see.
there are some men out there that want to stick into this quote unquote traditional era where they're thinking that women are getting too much power, you're getting too much stuff, and they want to keep you in that
Mm-hmm.
in that bounds of that traditional of long ago. And so it's us having to have that confidence built within ourselves and that
Mm-hmm.
security of not being easily deterred by that.
Yes. 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 I agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
So before we end, because we've gone through so many things, there is so many other things that I wanted to talk about, but we have come to that time. I think we went over a little
A
bit.
little bit.
We've come to that time where it's the end of our episode. But before we end, just I want you to just give last words, last words of tips, last word of advice that you would give to women out there in this as we celebrate Women History Month this year. What are your advice to women?
My advice to women as we celebrate Women's History Month and in respect to professional growth, I would say firstly, we are our toughest critics. We are our toughest critics. Be realistic, but also hold yourself accountable, but be kind to yourself, first of all. Once we've achieved that, map your plan and then execute. Revisit that plan ever so often because things would change, family life, everything else. And be flexible in recalibrating that plan without feeling guilt.
Yes.
Woman. It's easy for us to fall in that guilt trap. It's easy. We were even guilty when we can't make up a proper dinner and order pizza. And they're still eating, right, ladies? So let's get ourselves out that guilt trap and be easy on ourselves. And that's the best advice I've given myself and I can share with others. Being
Yes.
kind, be kind, be kind to yourself.
Definitely. So important. And my last advice to you, woman, is going to be do not allow anyone to dim your light. Not a man, not your family, not people around you. Because when you start allowing that, that's when you find yourself deep down in the valley of depression because you're not happy. Do the things that is going to make you happy and do not allow anyone to dim your light.
Yes,
And that is going to be my advice to all you women out there. Continue to live, laugh, and love, and be the best version of yourself you can be for yourself, first and foremost, for your family, for the people around you, but most importantly, for yourself.
yes.
Thank you so much, Tammy, for
Thank you,
coming and
Molly.
talking to me today on this Women History Month. Thank you so much. This has been a great discussion.
It has.
It's a discussion that needs to be had all throughout
Yes,
the year. Women need to be talking and really challenging, supporting each other and uplifting each other. And I'm so glad that we were able to do this. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. This has been another episode of the Network Our podcast. Until next time, live, laugh, and love.
yes.